everybody. Good afternoon. And I'm Beth Shibley coming to you actually from my home, but I'm the director of Sunflower House at Merritt Square Mall on Merritt Island. And this is the second session of our Caregiving 101 workshop. This one here is called Adjusting to a New Normal. And with me today are two of my co-workers, and one of them is actually my boss, Allie Mason, and Rose Smith are joining me today to talk about different aspects of so this section I think is once we've decided that we're kind of moving in the direction of keeping our loved one at home, that we've decided that for now we're going to try that first rather than to seek placement off the bat. And I think that sort of is, I mean, ladies, you can certainly weigh in, but I think that that's certainly an area that I think that the vast majority of family members who have the capacity to do that sort of explore that option seriously before they opt to put their loved one into place them. So, Allie, I think I'd love for you to talk a little bit about care management, case management, and kind of what people are, what kinds of things people can expect when people have decided they're going to have professional services coming into their home. And maybe we can also talk a little bit about, I'd love to have you tell me a little bit about how you would suggest folks vet folks, what do you look for in a company? And then, and the advantages of picking a professional company versus, your friend down the street who's got some extra hours.
Absolutely. So my name is Allie Almasian. I am over the home and community-based services here at Aging Matters in Brevard. And basically my role is to oversee pretty much what I just said, everything home and community-based. We have home care and in-home services that kind of help out with keeping our senior population in their home, and other resources that pertain to the community that help give resources to our seniors and the caregivers in the community. So what I'm here today am going to talk about is really kind of giving the options about the in-home services and what it looks like when you make that decision about having someone in your caregiver or your loved one stay in the home, what it looks like, and the different opportunities and different services that might be available to you once you make that choice. So really there's kind of, we talked about before, different paying sources and different options for paying for in-home care. You can go through your Medicare to be able to get or your Medicare, managed Medicare, like Health First or any of those, to get some skilled care. So sometimes I'm going to give you an example. Someone goes to a rehab and they decide to go home and their family member is going to be taking care of them. A lot of times the rehab or the hospital will offer to have an order for in-home skilled services, which is physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and nursing. And those are covered by your insurance. So you have that option to be able to have those services in your home. But of course, those only last for a period of time. Those are based on goals. What your goals are, similar to when you were or the person might have been in the nursing home or the rehab. You have goals there and you only stay in a rehab for so long. It's very similar to that. You go home and your nursing and therapy are only gonna be covered for so long through your Medicare coverage. So they're there to help get those goals met while you're at home and to educate and to train the caregiver possibly on what it is best to do with transitioning your loved one from being in the nursing home or the rehab into their home. It may be helping to get them in and out of the bath that they were so used to before they went to the rehab at their home. And now they're coming home to not having everyone be at their beck and call, so it's those people are there to help train the caregiver and the senior on getting the best way in and out of the bath, or in and out of the bedroom, or in and out of the bed, ambulating, dressing, grooming. So those are the skilled services that are covered under Medicare. And like I said, it only lasts for a period of time. It may only be 4, 6, sometimes in a lucky call, 8 weeks. But it's definitely a benefit that is there to you, depending if the physician is able to write that order and make sure that they qualify for that service. Another option is the in-home home health care. Home care is pretty much what it is. And those are your homemakers, someone to help clean up around the home, kind of help with meal preparation, changing linens, changing sheets, doing laundry, going shopping for them. They're going to sweep, dust. Light housekeeping is really what it is. And it's based on a safety protocol. So they're there to make sure that the things that they're doing in the home, it's not a maid service, it is safety purposes. It's to make sure that there's no spoiled foods in there that could make the senior get sick. It's to make sure that they're not sleeping on a dirty linens or wearing dirty clothes. So they're there to help wash laundry and do that. And you could also get personal care, which is bathing and grooming. Those are two of the main ones when you decide to bring your loved one home, or homemaking and personal care. And then you can come upon companionship if someone just needs someone to sit with them, or you need an aide to come and sit with your loved one, or maybe you need to get out of the home, and go get a break. And that is respite. It's a caregiver relief program. It gives the caregiver some respite time to get out of the home, maybe take a bath, take a nap, just to get out of that home. Those services right there are typically not covered under your insurance. They can be either through a private pay, and usually they range between $18 to $25 an hour, depending on how many hours you need them for, and depending on what type of company you look at. They're there to give the caregiver a little bit of a break, and are there to make sure that the senior is safe in their home. They can be covered through what they call a managed Medicaid long-term care, which is a different type of Medicaid program that is for seniors who are at risk of going into a nursing home. It's a pretty lengthy process to go through, but it's not inevitable, it's not impossible to get approved through. So they can get that program where Medicaid will cover for it. And of course, if someone has a long-term care insurance, there are many companies out in the community in Brevard County that will cover those exact services through your long-term care insurance. I always strongly suggest finding out if your loved one had a long-term care insurance, because you may not know that they do have it, and they in fact do. And there's always those fine lines and fine written words that it could only be after so many months do they start paying for it, or they may only pay for 4 hours a day, or they may pay for 24 hours a day. So I would strongly suggest digging through those papers, seeing what your loved one may have, see if they have a long-term care insurance, and contacting them if they do. They'll direct you in the best route to see if there's a coverage that they might have purchased many, many years ago, or several years ago, that could help cover for it.
One of the things that I've heard is actually those policies that were written a very long time ago tend to be more generous. So if you have somebody that had gotten, because they've closed a lot of the loopholes. So if you've gotten a long-term care insurance, if your loved one had gotten a long-term care insurance back in the 2000s, or even in the 1990s or the 2000s, you might be very surprised at what might be covered if they've kept up on it. So it is well worth the time to investigate whether or not they've gotten it. They've tightened up a lot of it since then. I think a lot of the companies aren't quite as generous with their policies, but most of them have been grandfathered. If they're older policies, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, and you made a good point, Beth. I know that my parents, when I first was working in social services in long-term facilities and nursing homes and rehabs, when I first started, I reached out to my parents, was like, please tell me you have something to cover you, during that time. And they did. They had purchased theirs, when they started to get of age. And so it was in their 90s, early 2000s. And they fortunately are able to have 24-hour coverage 7 days a week if they need it, because it can be quite expensive, but it was well worth the money, because they know they may not be able to have the care of the children come around due to, extensive family that they may have and so forth. So definitely take a look at that and see what your loved one's policy may be. They might have some great policy out there that gives them the coverage.
And it's better to get it now. I got my first one from the Hartford when I was 21 years old. And I locked in the rates then, and I locked in all that coverage then. And you can get it. It was when I worked for Edward Jones Investments. They were selling that. And I said, well, this is silly. I don't need that. I'm 21. He said, it also covers if I got in a car accident or something. It's not just, for when I'm aging, but it's an amazing policy. There's nothing like it out there now. But the sooner you file into a long-term care policy, the better, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to buy it when you need it.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And it might not be available once you need it, too. I mean,
That's true.
they can opt to not even cover you. Ellie, could you talk a little bit about how, like I said before, the question that I have is, how would I, how do I look to see what might be a good company to go with? I mean, sort of vetting without, obviously, we're not going to be recommending or not recommending any particular companies in Brevard County, but what would give you an idea? What's a quality in-home care provider look like?
Sure. I strongly suggest finding a company that is licensed and bonded, for sure. They have their own workers' comp licensing. They have their own insurance for their staff. Their staff, you really want to make sure are background screened. They're level 2 background screened. Anyone in the state of Florida, any person that is working legitimately for a senior or for a child as well, should have that level 2 background screen. It is a fingerprint background, so you want to check on that. You want to see that their background level 2 screened, and also quite possibly that. And what that really does is they're checking that they don't have, like I said, a felony or a theft or anything that may be triggering points for maybe a senior who might not be or might be dealing with some memory deficits, but are living alone because they don't have someone around. So, and that person may not be able to be completely on top of their finances. So you really want to check on those things, make sure they're licensed, bonded, and definitely fingerprinted background level 2. A drug screen is always a good thing too. It's a lot of the companies now are drug-free workplaces. So having a company that employs their staff is always a good thing. I'm not saying that contracted staff are bad either, because usually they still have to go through that extensive background screen to be able to work for that company. So just really any company that has their insurance and their licensing and are through the Agency of Healthcare Regulations. A lot of the companies around Brevard County have to be licensed through AHCA, Agency for Healthcare Regulations. So they really go through a rigorous process of auditing and details about their files and their training of their staff and their backgrounds of their staff. So you want to check through, you can check reviews and see through FloridaHealthcareFinder.com. A lot of them check on the background of the or reviews of the company, and you can check on the AHCA website, AHCA website as well, to see what company might work best for you. And I strongly encourage making random phone calls. Don't just go by reviews. Don't just go by word of mouth. Make those phone calls, interview them. COVID's played a different role, but interview a few different people, see what type of staff they have, see, because you're giving an example of what your family is like, and you're trying to paint a picture of what your loved one is like. So you want to interview people that might have caregivers that would better suit your loved one. So don't be afraid to interview and to contact them and go through that interview process like you would for a childcare or a babysitter, same type.
I think that's a really good point, Ellie. I think it really does help to start to think about, and most of the time we're putting out our own money for these, we're paying for these services. So there's no reason to feel embarrassed or like you shouldn't be able to do it, or, we all need to be caveat emptor. It's just, we have to buyer beware. We have to be very careful these days. And you're very much right about the background checks and the drug screenings. I have, we've all heard those horror stories about people who've got, some elders and some folks who aren't even older, but they've been in pain. They've got different, maybe narcotics in their home, and that can be a tempting place for people that haven't been. You got to pay attention to that. Because folks who are not necessarily always on the up and up will seek out opportunities and will seek out people who they think might be vulnerable. So it isn't coincidental that somebody would just offer to help. They very well might be doing that with the thought that you might have some things in your home that they might like, whether that be a valuable or be a narcotic or be a firearm or whatever it might be. So those things, it's not coincidental at all. So, and I thought also, I want to just echo again, workers' comp. And that's where the idea of just having your friend from down the street who's, mom's in, I'm in my 80s and I have a problem getting in and out of the shower. I'll just hire the woman down the street who's in her 60s. Yeah, except for the woman down the street in her 60s got a bad back and she doesn't bother to tell you that. And then all of a sudden she slips when she's trying to get you out of the shower, and then she's, and then you're in trouble too with your liability insurance because she's wrecked herself.
Right. And then she's in your home, And keep in mind, even when you hire someone through an agency, usually there are other people that are caregivers, there are other aides in there. So it may not be the best fit initially for you with a particular aide in that company. Don't necessarily give up on that company. They may have other aides that are available in there that may be a better suit for you. So similar to you being able to talk about your own job or to talk about your own, healthcare provider or your physician, don't be afraid to talk about the care that you're receiving from this aide. Like you said, Beth, is you're paying for this service or you're paying your insurance to pay for this service. Either way, you're paying for it. And you want to really be happy with it, and the last thing you want is to have someone in your home who you are not comfortable with, because they will be in your home several days a week for several hours out of that week, in your personal belongings, doing your personal laundry, changing your linens. They should never be touching any finances. They should never be going through bank statements. They should never be going through any of those things, but they are in your linens. They're in your bedroom, so if it's something that you just don't have that right feeling for, definitely talk to them. It may not happen immediately for that transition to a new caregiver, but they will do their very, very best to make that change.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. If you have a team around you, if you're working with a professional company, they will have a team of people. And it just might be that it's just not the right fit. It might be that your mom isn't comfortable having a male caregiver, or your dad wouldn't be comfortable with a female caregiver. And is there a way to be able to make that? And there are gender discrepancies, there are race discrepancies, there are class discrepancies, sometimes it's just a fit that make it much more comfortable for one person versus another person. So you got to find the right fit. You're absolutely right. So thank you, Allie, so much. Rose?
Absolutely.
I'd love for you to talk a little bit now about sort of the meat of this conversation today. We've decided to keep mom in our house, or we've decided that mom can stay in her own house a few miles up the road and I can just stop in and see her a few times. But getting her in and out of the house from the very beginning. There's all kinds of things that make her house not work for her the way it is right now. So can you talk a little bit about home modifications, kind of stem to stern?
Sure. Well, of course, besides having someone come in and take care of you, whether it's a family member or some professional to come in and do so, it's still not as simple as just, okay, I'm going to help mom bathe. I'm going to cook her meals. I'm going to, get her in and out of the house. Because I'm here, that's enough, which, it could be. But you're going to realize that now maybe this person you're caring for weighs twice as much as you, or even just a normal, maybe you guys weigh the same, but imagine trying to put somewhat yourself plus someone else into the tub without having something to grab onto, or getting them in and out of the house of a wheelchair when there's steps there, so there's some different things to think about. Once you've decided I am the able person, or you're hiring the able person, the house still has to be able to fit the person staying there. So first thing, of course, going in the front door, is there steps at the front door? Even a normal threshold that's 2 to 3 inches could be really hard to do if you're pulling someone up over that. And maybe the daughter or caregiver has all the best intentions, but pulling someone up over that threshold could really, hurt yourself, and be difficult for the person that you're bringing in. So possibly it's the threshold ramps. And then, of course, mobile home parks have the very large 3/4, steps going up, which is actually about anywhere between 24 to 36 inches. That home is off the ground. So your ramp could be up to 36 feet. That's very large. And so all of a sudden the question is how do we get that done? Yeah, I'm really good at painting, or doing crafts, but I can't build a ramp. So where do you go? And so that would be something that you could call our office and we could come out, being that we're a nonprofit, we don't charge people for building a ramp. We do ask for donations if someone is able, and we do have a wait list for this service, but we try our best to, help everybody out. And then of course we install grab bars for the bathroom. We check smoke detectors. We do the handheld showers. Now I know the Sunflower House sometimes has the shower chairs. We don't have that, but if, I always suggest that if you're nervous in the bathroom, even if you do have grab bars, sit down, use the handheld shower and sit down. And we also do some other modifications like installing the client purchase doorbell ring, which is very helpful. Any door sensors are helpful if you're worried with someone with memory issues. And so those are all things that we can assist with to keep them safe in their homes, because making that decision to have someone stay in their home, that's great. Then there's about 10 other decisions. And, that's of course what is making the home safe, looking at it at a totally different perspective, almost as if having a young child in there, almost like you're, okay, well, let's make sure there's no plugs to, or no plugs and wires to trip on. Let's make sure that, there's nothing really hindering them just from moving around their house normally. So you just got to look at it from a different point of view, and walk around with your family member. Where do you see them struggling? Are they kind of refusing to use their walker? Well, if that's the case, where do you see them grabbing for? Is it possible we could put a grab bar there? But to me, bathing, of course, is the biggest one. I always say that if you use soap, you should have a grab bar. Anybody can fall.
Well, I think almost everybody, I would venture to say that everyone on this video today generally uses soap. So yes. So.
There you go. I have to step away just for a second. My computer's about to die. I need to grab the battery. Give me 2 seconds.
No problem, Rose. No problem at all.
And Rose made a really good point about if you use soap, you have a grab bar, because we had been talking about our bathroom and I told her that we had a fiberglass shower in ours. And she had said, oh my gosh, Allie, she goes, it may be time to invest and make the change, because, and I remember thinking to myself, yes, it's a great step-in shower, but it's a fiberglass. Where am I going to put a grab bar? And it's not like we plan on moving, so that was something, and we brought it up. So you're never too young to talk about making the change out of that fiberglass shower into a tile and investing in upgrading your shower to tile to be able to support the grab bar, because there's no way and nowhere for a grab bar to go right now, except on the outside. But I don't even know if there's a beam on the outside for it to go,
Right.
So
I just told a friend of mine on Facebook today too. She's like, I'm pulling out this fiberglass shower, and she shows pictures, and I'm like, you're not putting another one in, are you? And she's only 40 and I just got on her already. She's like, what are you talking about? I said, please take the extra. And it's not necessarily an extra cost as it is finding the appropriate person to do it. You could do a fiberglass enclosure almost if you're a handy person at home. It's more about changing the expense and hiring someone to put in the tile and learning how to do tile if you want to do it yourself. So it's about the time. Fiberglass is just so much easier, but you can't age with fiberglass. And think about this, fiberglass actually ages. It will get brittle over time. So yeah, you can go ahead maybe and put the grab bar in when you very first get it, but trusting it after that point, and there's no studs behind them. So you could either get a screw this long and put it, hopefully finding a stud in the background, which is very unlikely, or put it in there and just rely on the integrity of the unit when it's new. So I always tell people, if you have a choice, please don't do fiberglass. It's very difficult. And I say the same thing. If someone was asking my opinion, please don't move into a mobile home as you age. First floor condo is the best. Still, you have less maintenance, but you don't have to worry about all those steps, and you don't have to worry about having fiberglass enclosures, which are in a whole bunch of mobile homes. So if you can, as you're aging, think about, the location of where you're going.
Yeah. Rose, could you talk a little bit, could you kind of go through what, I know you've talked about having one of your staff members go through and kind of do an assessment of the home, or that you've gone in and done assessments of the homes, sort of looking at what people need to look at. You kind of touched on it briefly, but could you just kind of go through maybe each room a little bit and tell me somewhat about what are the kind of the top things that we all need to work at? Because some of the things I think are probably pretty easy to do right off the bat. I'm thinking, taking throw rugs out of the way,
Right.
I mean, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's a good one. Of course, especially if someone has a walker, the less throw rugs you have around, especially if they're absolutely not necessary. Now, if you're using one because the person is slipping constantly on the regular tile, if you get the no stick rugs, that's better. But yeah, I would recommend getting rid of as much clutter that's on the floor as possible. Getting one of those grab sticks and try to pick up the dog toys and everything all over the floor, anything that could be on the floor as much as possible. I always tell people, and the easiest one I think to do is when you're first going inside of your house, is to put a hook right by the front door. And so when you're opening up your door, you can put your groceries or put your purse right there. So you have both hands available to open up this door and step up over the threshold. Then once the door's open, you can turn around and grab your things. But it's always about when you're going in the home and you fill your hands up, the chance of falling right there at the front door. And if you're living alone and you have fallen at your front door, just think about your own front door. How many people can really see directly into it and see that you're actually sitting right there? I know for me, I live up on a hill. So if even when someone's walking by, they may not see me laying there. And most front doors don't have a phone right there.
Mhm.
So it's different than when you fall in your kitchen and maybe you have your phone right there, you fall in the living room. At your front door could be, pretty dangerous. Same, of course, with the bathroom. We don't necessarily walk around the entire house to do an assessment. My handymen are trained when they see certain things. They just know. We don't necessarily do that, but who does that is the caregivers and aides and physical therapists come in. And most of our calls into the agency come from people who unfortunately have already fallen and gone through rehab and have an occupational therapist go into the house. That person looks for everything up and down. And what I like about them doing it is that it's not a general assessment. They know that person. They've gotten to know that patient. And so maybe where our guys would normally think, okay, a grab bar goes 36 inches up, that's pretty standard by the toilet. Well, what if Mrs. Jones is 5'1", like myself, maybe a 36-inch grab bar, now you've put it kind of in a very it's harder for me to use it to get up. So a lot of times they'll mark the walls for us and make recommendations of what's best for that patient's healing. So we're not so much the assessors as much as we are the laborers. It's really great when someone in the family or a physical therapist can do that for us. So anyhow, going in the front door was that hook, and the doorbell I mentioned, for a lot of reasons, the video doorbell is just such a great thing to have. You should never, ever lock your loved one in who's having memory issues. Do not buy a double-sided deadbolt lock. What happens if you can't find the key? You should not use those chain locks up at the top or put a lock way up top so that person can't reach it. You don't know what's going to happen when they do need to get out. but you can put a sensor on the door and a camera on the door, and you can know at least when they get out. But don't lock somebody in. I get that call a lot more than I'd like to say we do about even locking someone in their bedroom. And I just feel, and fire code, of course, is against that. Smoke detectors, we will check those in every house that we go to, of course. But if you have one going off, call your local fire department, tell them there's a senior in the home. They'll come out immediately. For us, we don't have that availability, but that's a new thing that they've rolled out since COVID and maybe a little bit before that, where they'll come out and do smoke detector batteries for seniors. There's not a lot we do into the kitchen. I'd love to tell you that we could. My dog's going to start barking. I'd love to tell you that we could, but really that's going to be for a contractor. You need, if you want to have lower cabinets and lower, easier to open drawers and things like that. And we really don't go into that room very much. The front room where you're watching TV, just having everything easily accessible to you, not too cluttered. The bedrooms, we have done a couple grab bars in bedrooms and bed rails that slide underneath the mattress, but they're not industrial bed rails. They're not the medical grade ones. They're really just there for balance. They're not going to stop you from rolling out. You can't put your entire weight on them, not ours at least, but they're at least guidance. So when you're sitting down, you can have your arm kind of on them maybe while you're tying your shoes or putting on your clothes. And so that's basically it for the bedrooms.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to bounce in a little bit on that, Rose, because at Sunflower House, we have durable medical equipment, and bed rails are one of those. And people are saying, I need something to keep my loved one from rolling out of bed. The bed rails are not meant for that. And even now, I mean, years ago, hospital beds would have these long extended rails that would go from their head down to their feet. And laws and rules and regulations have changed since then. And, you know, I think a reasonable person could argue in more than one direction as whether or not those changes have been good for every single part. What happened was a lot of those rules had changed because they had begun to consider them restraints. And the state of Florida has some pretty rigid rules around restraints, and full-length bed rails are among those. So you're not going to find the hospital beds even now with full-length bed rails. So the bed rails, you're right, they're meant to be able to help you maybe be able to turn and pivot, or maybe be able to help you stand up because your mattress is too soft and you don't have anything to push against, or to be able to lift your foot up and put a sock on, but it's not going to keep you from falling out of bed. And if you're not even really going to be able to put your loved one who's not going to be able to put their entire almost 200-pound weight on that bed rail. So
no, you're right. And that's what we're, you know, experiencing as we're making the custom ones that we do, is just to explain again for balance. Same thing with the suction cup grab bars. You know, when you can't use regular grab bars into fiberglass, your first instinct is to go run out and get the suction cup grab bars. Well, maybe in the deserts of Nevada where it's dry all the time, that might be okay. But if you ever pull your humidity into your house on a regular basis, you're already at 50% in your house. So your ability to have something suction cup onto a flat surface without moisture to pop it off is very low. But I tell people, if you have to, because they're scared, and I get it, if you have to, just use it for balance. If you go to fall and think that's gonna work, it's not. It's worse to grab for something and it fall off than you not to grab for it at all. And so, you know, you might fall harder if you go to grab for a suction cup. So I always tell people, I get it. The suction cup might work as you just barely have your hand on it while you're shampooing, but it's not for when you fall. It's two different things. You really need a good grab bar that's weight bearing.
Or a shower tip, like you mentioned before, Rose. I mean, we have
not a chair from the back porch. We see that all the time, and I'm sure Allie's staff sees that as well. It's just they're constantly like, well, this lawn chair fits in here. Well, okay. Or the potty chairs, or all these things that we're using for multiple purposes are not something we should be doing. So anyhow, so that's the bedroom. Back to the living room for a quick second. We do make chair platforms. which are really amazing. And I don't think there's a thing out there in the market you can buy that's exactly the same. I think you can get chair lifts where you put those little pods underneath the legs. But when you're thinking about a recliner, as someone ages, and even a new recliner, they're so soft and comfortable that you sink right into them. Getting out of one of those is very hard. And if you can't afford a power chair to help you get out of it, and you have just a standard recliner, we'll build a platform to go underneath it that lifts it a couple inches. So when you're getting out, you can slide out. It's not necessarily the same huge effort to get out of this recliner. You're up higher. It's easier to sit down in it as well. So we do that for living rooms, but as long as they have no power to them. So it can't be even like my couch is a power recliner. It goes, I guess it's too hard to use the lever. I don't know. So they make them power. And so we can't build anything underneath that. Nothing that's going to have an electrical component are we going to do any type of modifications for. There's probably some weight balances in there. We don't want to touch that. So, but a standard lazy boy, we can do those. A kitchen, not much. The garage, we can build a threshold ramp into the garage. We build a ramp to basically the entrance and exit you use the most. And if you're trying to get into your car, so that would be it. We will change the light bulbs in the garage. A dark garage is a dangerous garage. But of course, the bathroom is where we're at most of the time. We do up to 1,700 grab bar installations a year. Now, what that means isn't just 1,700 grab bars. That means double or triple that, because there's more than one grab bar in each home. So I could proudly say we probably install 3,000 grab bars each year in Brevard County. In terms of ramps, I think we're at 70 to 80 of different sizes, if I remember the statistics on that. The grab bars go outside the shower, they go inside the shower, they go next to the toilet. Anywhere that you're finding that you need to reach for something, we can put most of the time we can put a grab bar at your front door. If you have a mobile home and you're not ready to get the ramps, we can put a grab bar right there so you can hold on to something as you're coming up the steps. We can do handrails into the mobile homes. Back porch, we have been known to do threshold ramps out to the back porch. Quality of life is important. And if out there you've got to take your dog in and out, or you want to watch the birds, if it's something that we have available in our funding, then we go ahead and do a small threshold ramp into the backyard. I think that's about it. We really don't do a lot more outside. I know that people need repairs. And if I could just do a little post about that. We don't do home repairs and we don't do home maintenance. So unfortunately, even though I know it's a need out there, currently we're not trimming trees or bushes or mowing lawns or fixing driveways or putting grab bars at your storage shed in the back. I'm just trying to think of all the things I've been asked. No roofs, no plumbing, no electrical. We mainly are using the limited funding to install safety devices. So that's where we're at, just to be really clear of that. As much as I'm sure all of us would get out there and do a roof if we could, or air conditioning, the funding just isn't there. An air conditioning unit's $600 alone, starting. With $600, we could do almost 60 grab bar installations, or something, not that many, but, up, anywhere between 20 grab bar installations.
Several dozen.
Yeah, so when you look at where the funding comes from, being we're a nonprofit, we really have to spread that out. And so we're really focusing on the grab bars on the inside of the house. The only thing we do outside is going to be the ramps and steps and hand railings. The rest of it we don't do. And we also have a private pay program too. So you have the donation-based program and there's a private pay program available. There's a charge for that, but there's no wait list. And some people like to do that program.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the private pay.
So currently the private pay program is you'll get the same services, the same background to checked handyman, but because of funding purposes, you're not waiting for funding purposes. You don't have to be put onto our wait list. If you're paying, there's an hourly charge plus the cost of the materials. You could have it done within 3 to 5 business days or less. It could be the very next day. I could discuss the rate. Currently it's $40 an hour, but as this video replays, it could be higher. As people watch this in the future, we may have to raise that. But for right now, it's $40 an hour with a 2-hour minimum plus the cost of the bars. So the average current installation is about $100 to $120, which is definitely still at least 50% lower than calling a plumber or a licensed contractor. We're still trying to be very competitive I would almost call us a discount service at that rate, because try calling someone for under $75 to even show up.
Well, yeah, and a lot of folks, talking about a contractor, good luck getting a contractor to come in and do anything that tiny.
And to be quick, they're not quick either.
Yeah. Right. There's all kinds of waiting lists out there for somebody to come out and do tiny little jobs, and people they're just not interested in doing it unless you're talking,
Right. And ours are background checked and have been doing specifically just this. So you could call a plumber who can tell you he's never installed a grab bar. Yeah, he's worked with tile, but he may not know where it needs to go. So our guys, you're getting the same quality skilled guys, workman's comp, insurance, everything. But there is a charge for that program. So it just depends on what you have going on. If you're just now getting into rehab and you're not getting out for 3 weeks and funding is tight, go ahead and get you or your loved one onto the wait list. But if it's a more of an immediate situation, talk to me about private pay. And we've extended that to 55 and above, where the donation-based program is 60 and above.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that was a time where my mom thought she was just going to have the plumber, as long as he was in there working on the toilet, she would just have him put the grab bar in for him, and he wasn't paying attention, and he installed what was basically a towel bar. He wasn't he wasn't paying attention to where the studs were. He was just using it wasn't, so. Yeah. He did a wonderful job, and it was a beautiful thing, but it didn't hold my father up when he tried to get up off the toilet.
Yeah. They do make some designer grab bars. I'll tell you, I've seen some nice ones that are also a toilet paper holder, that are also just like your shower spigot. It'll be the spigot and then a beautiful ring right around the top of it, to just kind of hold on to, and it's stable. I mean, they do make other things, but we only install ADA approved grab bars by Moen, and they're stainless steel. Those are going to be the best ones.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I thank you very much, ladies. I appreciate it. and I think we ran a little bit light today, but that's just because we didn't have any live people joining us. I hope that folks are, as they move forward, and we have this on our Facebook page and our website and our YouTube channel. Allie, could you do me a favor? And if somebody wants to get a hold of Aging Matters in Brevard to look at in-home care services, what number should they call?
I would have them do, for the in-home, you can start with calling 321-639-6652. And that's our home care program. And if we need to work through different funding streams or anything, we can certainly get you in the right direction. But that's probably the best phone number to reach out to right now.
Terrific. And Rose, if you've got somebody that just needs to have a couple of things like a grab bar put in, how do they get a hold of you in Brevard County?
So luckily I have my own line, so people can reach me directly. They don't have to go through any of the other intake processes that they do for other programs. And what I mean is, it's a very streamlined process. If you're over 60 and you own your own home, you qualify. That's it. We're not going to ask you your income. We're not going to ask you anything. And so you want to call my line directly at 321-631-2744. Now, if you get the voicemail, just leave a message. I promise I'll call back within 24 to 48 hours, sometimes a lot less, and we'll get you situated. It's a very easy process, so don't be intimidated by it. I know a lot of programs, and necessarily so, need to ask you a billion questions. Give me a call. We'll get you situated the same day, probably.
I think that's one of the things that I want everybody to have as a kind of a takeaway, is to just call us, because we're going to be able, if we don't know exactly, if we can't exactly help you with what it is you need, chances are somebody at Aging Matters is going to be able to point you in the direction of somebody who can. And it'll either be within our agency or within one of the really capable collaborators we have within Brevard County. If you need durable medical equipment, like we were talking about before, shower chairs, bed rails, walkers, wheelchairs. I have bath transfer benches, where one side of the bench sits outside of the bath and the other side sits in the bath, and there's a little sliding seat that goes across, so that if you have a traditional tub that's not a step in.
Those are so awesome.
We get those. They are like gold when we get those in. You can call me at Sunflower House, and I also have my own direct line, and my phone number is 321-452-4341, and my name is Beth, and I'm at the Sunflower House. And when you can make an appointment, and we can figure out what size things work for you. We also have bedside commodes, we have folding walkers, we have lots of different things, and we also carry incontinence supplies. I just want to put a plug in. So sometimes towards the end of the month, money can get tight if you're living on a really if you're living on a tight budget and limited income. The last couple of weeks can be kind of snug, and sometimes those incontinence supplies can be really expensive for family members and really expensive for people. So if you're finding yourself in an occasional need, and it's not for all the time, we're not going to be where you can go to just shop, but if you need an occasional help to get you over a hump, you can come and get briefs and underwear and chucks that can go, the pads that can go on beds. You can give us a call. And I thank you both very much for your time today. It's been wonderful, and I appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon, ladies.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.